I'm going to introduce Avecita, although probably all of you know her. Big honor, because Avecita is the one that brought me here to the University of Florida conference in 1995. I was remembering this. We came to present something that we were doing under the Merge project in Madre de Dios in Puerto Maldonado, in coalition, in collaboration. In Madre de Dios, border with the map area. So I remember coming here first time. I don't know, maybe it was my first time in the US, probably, I don't know, but it was a conference and we were coming to present what we were doing. So that was a long time ago. So thank you, Avecita. And Avecita, also, the first time I heard her name, it was, wow, she's called Avecita and she works in the rainforest. So, but Avecita, 40 years advancing biodiversity conservation and sustainable development across Latin America and the Caribbean. She is a leader of major regional programs, right now leading the Moore Foundation and this Amazon Initiative, and before working in WCS and MacArthur Foundation and Conservation International, with proven impact across diverse ecosystems. She will also bring a strategic cross-country program. She's a strategic cross-country program builder who blends field knowledge and institutional leadership to protect biodiversity and climate function. So Avecita, you're very welcome.
Maybe I will just give you the takeaway right away. The key takeaway: we cannot save the Amazon alone. We need to build coalitions to achieve our goal. And I'm glad Charo brought up this meeting in 1995. That was, for me, a learning experience on how to build a coalition, merge, right? Thank you for the invitation and the opportunity to present some reflections about the work we're doing at the Moore Foundation. You heard a bit about our approach to philanthropy yesterday from Maria, and I will build on that today. And I just want to say that I'm so happy to be back on this campus where I had extraordinary mentors. Thank you, Marianne. And also made lifelong friends. In fact, I even married one of them. He's at home right now. But I want to build on the concept of social tipping points that Annie presented just now. And when this reminds me when Charo presented the animals, what we relate to, and then Corinne asked me, which one do you identify with? I was looking at the ideas and I said, maybe my animal is more inclined towards the action. So now we know all these things, right? We have all the science. So we are at the Moore Foundation, and what we do is a strategic philanthropy. And what we want to do is provoke action, provoke change based on that information that we know. So we have learned a lot about the Amazon in the last few decades. And a synthesis of this information is available in the science panel for the Amazon reports, as we heard yesterday from Marielos. So yes, we have done a lot of work to achieve conservation, but we are not done yet. Collectively, we have worked really hard to make sure that 408 million hectares, or nearly 50% of the Amazon, is under some sort of conservation regime. What you see in this map, what you see in the map is in orange, indigenous lands, in green, protected areas. There's a little bit of overlap in certain places, but if you sum everything up, it would be 408 million hectares approximately, nearly 50% of all the Amazon. But we know it's not enough. We know it's not enough. We need to continue our work to distinguish vulnerable, connected, and high biodiversity areas more sharply, so that we can focus our efforts to secure nature and just livelihoods for local people before it is too late. The biodiversity crisis and the climate change crisis are two sides of the same coin, and this affects the viability of all life on Earth. So I want to focus on three things that connect really how we want to provoke these social tipping points so that we can save the Amazon. So first, I'm going to talk about the Moore Foundation approach to avoid a planetary tipping point. And thank you for putting that map earlier, because what's happening in the Amazon is one of 9 planetary tipping points that we need to worry about. All this based in the work of Johan Rockström and his team and other researchers. So then the focus on institutions that make change happen and present some examples of the coalitions that we are currently supporting. So regarding the Moore Foundation approach, the Moore Foundation began in 2001. And from the beginning, the foundation was supporting work in the Amazon because early on there was a recognition that we had to do something about protecting this important place. The Andes Amazon Initiative started in 2003. Our objective was to contribute to the establishment of well-managed areas. By 2022, nearly 50% of the Amazon under some conservation regime. And we contributed to that with our grant making. So this was accomplished during the phase 1 of our initiative that ended in 2021. So we realized that protected areas and indigenous land, they do serve as important shields to conserve natural ecosystems from the expansion of agriculture, cattle ranching, and other threats. But we know that this is not enough to avoid the planetary tipping point. So what we did is to propose to establish a more ambitious objective for a second phase that we proposed a second phase in 2022 that was actually approved until 2031. So it's 10 years, $300 million to be disbursed to protect the Amazon. Now, so our new objective then, this is our high-level conceptual model. So our vision remains the same, right? Secure the biological diversity and climate function of the Amazon basin forever. That's our vision. That's what we would like to see forever. So we put ourselves into a situation to have a more ambitious initiative outcome, and that is to secure 70% of the Amazon. Again, remember I've said a few times, 50%, that means we need to focus on having 20% more secured. And to do that, we developed 4 strategies that you see here, or goals or pillars. We have a monitoring an evaluation team in the foundation that always corrects us what we should say. What is it lately? Pillars? I don't know. Goals. Let's go with goals. So we have 4 goals, okay? And we have 3 program officers, and they're here now. And each one of them is responsible for each goal. So later you can talk to them about each one of them. So I'm just going to say this quickly. For goal number 1, Maria Di Llano. Can you stand up? For goal number 2, Francisco Oliveira. And number 3, Maria Franco Chuaire, more commonly known as Mayayo. No, Machacho, as they say in Colombia. We have different accents. We all speak Spanish, but and Portuguese, more or less, right? Yeah. So we have 4 goals, and the 4th goal is the institutional framework. But I'll come back to that. Goal number 1 is to work on having 50 million hectares more under indigenous territories. And it's not exactly like 20% more than before because we're putting a buffer that is higher. So it's 50 million hectares of indigenous lands more by 2031. In goal number 2, we're working on the conservation of freshwater ecosystems and forest ecosystems. And also what we're thinking is 20% more is not exactly that, but 50 million hectares more, mainly on wetlands ecosystems that are overlooked. The third goal is focused on threats, how to mitigate, avoid, stop threats in the Amazon. There are lots of threats, so we chose 2. One that we carried on from the phase 1 was looking at infrastructure because it is a driver of drivers, meaning that you build infrastructure and you open up access to natural ecosystems, right? So we focus on infrastructure, but we also started to think about extractive economies. And one of the things that we are going to be working more, and in fact, Mayayo developed a very nice and deep theory of change for starting to work on gold mining across the Amazon. So that's one other thing we're doing. And goal number 4 is what we call the institutional framework. And for us, this is a cross-cutting objective because what we want to do with the institutional framework is to ensure social, political, and economic viability and durability of conservation outcomes. Now, why institutions? To produce social tipping points. Positive, all positive. Why? We don't do the work ourselves. Therefore, it is important to support individuals and organizations to acquire the knowledge, tools, and resources to build effective institutions for conservation. Institutions are the rules, organizations, and norms that shape economic behavior and social interaction. For example, property rights framework is a type of formal institution. Customs and traditions could be regarded as an informal institution. So what is that? If you took Michael Mosley's class, The Incas and Their Ancestors, you may have learned that the Andean term Aini refers to the powerful principle that focuses on reciprocal and mutual exchange. It's about sharing labor, goods, and energy. Another important Andean concept is that of Minca. Minca refers to the traditional system of communal work, that is, voluntary collective labor for the common good. These 2 concepts are the basis of effective reciprocity and coalition building. Our main strategies then under this institutional framework is, first, support applied science that can inform sound policy. Second, provide resources for the financial sustainability of key interventions. For example, Vituque in Brazil, that is to a fund managed by Funbio to support the Ministry of Indigenous Peoples in Brazil to implement Penegachi, which is the national plan for indigenous people. So that's one thing that we do under that framework. Another thing is elicit a change in societal behavior informed by better narratives that envision a society that is just and incorporates environmental safeguards that secure conservation of nature. And most importantly, foster collaboration among different stakeholders and right holders so that coalitions work together for better solutions based on true participation and consultation. So, the Moore Foundation supports several types of coalitions, and I have chosen a few to illustrate the range of our support. And as I said, if you'd like to know more about this, you can talk to any of us in the team. So for goal one example that I wanted to share with you is something that we are doing with other funders. It's the Forest Tenure Funders Group. This is a coalition of government and private funders. At the moment, it's co-directed by Jacobs Futura and the government of Germany. Together, and there are like a number of donors there, together we collectively have pledged 1.8 billion of funding from 2026 through 2030 to advance efforts in support of indigenous peoples around the world. I have 1 minute. I'm sorry. Okay. So there is a website for that. Please look it up since it looks like I won't be able to talk a lot more. So it's just if you want to look it up, Forest Tenure Funders Group. I wanted to call your attention on this because this is not just for the Amazon. This is for the whole world. And also one of the most important thing there is to try to have open direct access for indigenous peoples, okay? I'm just going to give the other examples very quickly. Goal number 2, one of the examples I wanted to use is the support to the Amazon Waters Alliance, a coalition of about 29 organizations across the whole Amazon, now under the leadership of Mariana Varese, who is also surprisingly a University of Florida alumna. And so we know that about 15% of the Amazon is wetlands. And we need to pay more attention to that. So that is the point. Goal number 3, I just wanted to point out a coalition that is recent, maybe a year and a half old, with Clark University, with the NGO DAR in Peru, and a research center, Centro de Estudios sobre China y Asia Pacífico. And this coalition was put together to understand the potential socio-political and economic and environmental conditions of the construction of the Chancay port on the coast of Peru that will elicit connections with the Amazon region. So speaking of infrastructure, if we connect the Amazon with a road over the Andes that connects to a port in the north of Lima in the Pacific coast, that will be access to a way to take resources out to Asia and other parts of the world. So that's important. And well, in goal number 4, we have specific things like we have supported the science panel for the Amazon from the beginning. And also another one is SEPIA in Peru, coalitions of researchers and practitioners that get together to debate and to synthesize information for the conservation of the Amazon. So just to finish, what has worked with coalitions is having a clear common objective and a good plan with a beginning and an end. What has not worked is when we have tried to force an alliance and people just will say probably yes to get the funds, but once they get the funds, you know, it is hard if they don't have clarity on whether they want to work together or not. And there are a few examples that has not worked when objectives or approaches do not align. And what do we need in the future in terms of coalitions for provoking social tipping points? We need to connect the grassroots with the subnational, with the national and international level. Amazonia is vast, and we will not be able to win if we don't identify interventions at the right scale. And we should be looking at a larger scale for higher impact. So just to sum up and finish, what is the what for us? We want to avoid a planetary tipping point in the Amazon. And the how? Building coalitions, because we won't be accomplishing this objective alone. We need to improve what we are doing and find innovative ways to build new coalitions with clear short and long-term objectives in the spirit of practicing Aini and Minka. Thank you.